issue, but how much are you in charge of calling plays? How much does he contribute?
You know, Coach is great. You know, when we first got together at Florida, it's the terminology that I've used for a long time and been around for a long time. In the middle of the game, I mean, he is letting me call the plays that we think are going to work. Occasionally, situationally, we get together, but I'm asking him before he tells me. So, like, if we get into a 2-minute drill or a 1-minute drill at the end of half, I'll say, how do you want me to approach this? Or if we're getting to a 4-minute situation at the end of the game, how do you want me to approach this? Aggressive, non-aggressive? That's really where his input comes in. As far as play calling, saying run or pass, I mean, he lets me do it.
With
He's
the
great.
philosophy, Kurt, especially looking at this year where you guys got a lot of known weapons on offense and maybe the defense not so much, is it you going to try to have more ball control? Will it be dictated by the situation? Will you try to open it up and score a lot of points?
Well, I think each game is its own game, which maybe is a stock answer, what you hear. But you know, in football today, I'll say this, it takes more points to win games than it did when I first got into this league. So I think you have to have an aggressive mindset and you know, go out and try to score points. And you want to do it by controlling the ball. So if you can score points and not ever have to give the ball up, it'd even be better.
Kurt, how do you feel about this offensive line? Where are they compared to where they were last year? And what do you expect?
Well, I think it's kind of like the whole team. It's the second go-around. So all the – you know, what I tell the quarterbacks all the time is you really don't know the offense or even a single play until I can say something to you verbally and you can visualize what I'm talking about. And now I think we're at the situation where those guys up front, when we start talking about a protection or a run, they can visualize what we're talking about and then apply it to a 3-down defense, 4-down defense, so we'll be better. And I think Eric's done a great job of you know, helping those guys progress. So I think, you know, I feel good about those guys. I feel good about going to play right now, and if we had to play, but we're still also at the same point where we're going to try to stir the pot and see who our best 5 are.
Is there more depth there than there were last year?
You know, I think there will be when the season starts, for sure. I think offensive line, you'd like to have 8 guys that can play for you. You like to have 3 tackles, 3 guards, and 2 centers. And it's not always the second center is necessarily your second center. It might be the right guard would be our second center or something along those lines. But I do think we're moving in that direction, and we'll have 8 guys that we can go in. Now, maybe we can't run everything that we would necessarily run if we get down to a guy. We got to be smart, but we'll have 8 guys.
Kurt, how much does Jake have his own freedom to call his own plays out there, outside of the usual audibles?
You know, so I'm calling the plays. I think, you know, I learned this from David Cutcliffe a long time ago. The game is too complex now to put that onus on the quarterback. So what you do is help him with parameters. Now, you will either or plays, run, pass, run. If we've got a pass call that we don't like versus a certain look, he's got the ability to change that pass route. But as far as calling plays, I'll call the plays. Now, when we get to the sideline at the end of a series, Jake's the kind of guy that I'm going to say, hey, is there anything that you're feeling good about? And I'm going to take that into consideration, obviously.
How ready is he for this position? Obviously, he came in and did great. What are you looking for him as a sophomore, and now that it's fully?
You know, that's a good question. So what ends up happening, Jake's really smart. He works at it and studies and knows what we're going on. But sometimes communicating it and being able to actually execute it are 2 different things. So what I would say right now, probably over 2 days, is we're probably asking him to do too much early on. Not that he can't get all that, but you're dealing with a guy that I have a lot of trust in. So you're like more, because you can have a conversation, and you just have to be careful, you know, that way.
What about the backups?
How do you like his mental progress in terms of understanding all the
it's really good. This guy's the guy on Thursday night that's in the film room at 10 o'clock. You know what I mean? And so I think football is really, really important to him, and because of that, he really works at it, and he knows he's learned how to study the game. You know, Matt Sims and I have worked together a long time, and Matt's been a huge help for me, and he and Jake and Matt spend a lot of time together when I'm out recruiting and things like that, and it's just really helped Jake progress in how to study film and what he's looking for, and it's basically trying to get total command of our system, our offense, and he's really good at that.
How about your back? I'm sorry, go ahead.
What are the markers for you that tell you he's getting it? Whether you're talking to him or whether you're watching him on the field, what are the things that you know that's clicking?
I think when you watch him handle our protection system, his understanding of what's going on. Now, with us, we teach quarterbacks how everything's blocked. Run game, we give them more. Our whole deal is to teach them football, and so the more they understand, the better it'll be at fixing plays or whatever it is. So, but his management of protections and how to fix them and those things are really make you sit back and go, okay, he's starting to understand this.
Kurt, you came into Florida, and they were guys that maybe weren't familiar with, hadn't recruited, came in here, same thing. How comfortable are you with the guys that you have now that they've been out there and have done it, and you're in your second year?
Obviously, there's a comfort level to being in year two and teaching the same things and just teaching the details and the finer points better and growing. A lot of people saw the end product at Duke. They sat there and really watched kind of one season we won 10. There was a lot of build up to that, to get to that point where we were executing at that level. So year two obviously it helps.
How about your backup situation at quarterback? What's going on?
No, so I thought Mike had a good spring. Mike can throw the ball. He's cut from the same mold as Jake in the sense that he's going to be a pocket passer. So we're largely doing the same things, with him, and he can physically throw the ball. And I told Mike his challenge needs to be not to get comfortable waiting in the wings, and we all understand our quarterback situation right now, but he needs to go compete every day to get better and be prepared. And I think he is, and he's got the ability to throw the football.
Does he have the same capacity as far as absorbing the playbook and the film and all that Jake does? Or?
You know what? So sitting in the meeting room, I would say yes right now. Mike hasn't played yet, so not trying to be too critical of Mike until the lights come on and you start playing. I don't know. But he does a good job on the practice field and he does a good job communicating. But Saturday's a lot different than Tuesday morning.
How much more formational diversity do you have?
I think we'll have quite a bit. It's like all our offense. Last year you try to introduce as much as you possibly can to the guys, but that doesn't mean it's game ready.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that we introduced, but we're not game ready, and then it also keeps you from necessarily growing within a week. If there's specific things that you want to do game plan wise for that week that you just don't carry because you did in the heat of the battle. Are they going to be able to execute it when it's not exactly what we worked or those things? So now our system understanding is better. We can grow more for sure.
Jake said not too long ago that some of the sacks, maybe a lot of the sacks, were on him last year, and he's working to improve in that area. What can he do to, help the offensive line keep the sacks to a minimum?
Right. With every protection, there's inherent problems with them. And the first thing the quarterback has to know is what the inherent problem is. And so I think his understanding of that is good. And so there were times that I don't think he knew who necessarily was blocked and wasn't blocked. And I think he's got full grasp of that now. And I think he's doing a good job of manipulating our protections based on pressures that he can see and things like that. So that's really what it gets down to is nothing's perfect in football, right? You got 40 seconds to get a play called, to get a play communicated, and then get up on the line. So you don't have all the time in the world as a quarterback. You got to function fast. So you have to have mechanisms in your offense, in your passing game, that if it isn't perfect, what are our answers? And Jake didn't always have that answer last year, and so we're getting better. So you have to protect a guy like that. That's just what you're getting at. How much do you allow him to do, or do you have to protect him? And instead of having 5 route runners, you might have 3 route runners, and it changes everything.
And because of your situation at quarterback in practice, when y'all go to pads and contact, will he be pretty much hands off the entire game?
Yes, and for the most part, that's basically everywhere I've been. You just don't hit quarterbacks because you can just turn on Saturdays too much, and so I'll say this: one of the things people always joke about is a quarterback. He never gets hit in practice. It's not a very watch Saturday when he's standing there and a guy's got a 10-yard run and he's going to hit at him. How many guys want to do that? And that's what a guy has to be able to do. He's got to be tough enough, and Jake is tough enough to do that. So we got to get him to the game. Coach Fulmer used to say all the time, "Get the horse to the gate." You know what I mean? And we kind of need to get him to the gate.
How much of a luxury is it to have 3 running backs that have done it as well as they have? And
so I'll tell you another story. I was a running back coach at Tennessee, and running backs sometimes come with personalities, right? And you got one football, and Arian Foster's in the room, Montario Hardesty's in the room, and Lamarcus Coker's in the room. Great guys, but they're all competitive. They all want the ball, and there's always somebody at the end of the game not getting the football, right, or in a practice not getting the foot. So you got to have a conversation with them, and you got to show them the light at the end of the tunnel. But we were sitting in staff, and I was just flustered. You know what I mean? I'm like, I got too many good ones. And Coach Fulmer said, oh, hell, here he goes. And it wasn't 2 days later I got Hardesty hurt, you know what I mean? And then something else happened. And you go, that position so you 3 is probably not enough, to be honest with you. You know, but yes, it is good to have guys that can play, but that's a scary position.
How do you see this shaking out as far as roles? Any idea? I know it's early, but just based on what you've seen so far.
You know, so right now the knowns obviously are Hayden, Debo, and Brian. You know what I mean? And we feel good about our running backfield, just what you talked about. So that leaves, you know, a couple other guys that we'll keep working through. You know what I mean? And seeing, and obviously Guger's a guy that we have a lot of faith in. Ortre has improved since the spring. Shi Smith has flashed. You know, and we got to try to get, you know, Drake coming along.
Has anybody talked about using Jemias Williams on offense in any situation?
It hadn't come up. Yeah, he's got so much going on, I'm sure, on his plate.
Oh, with the tight ends, Kurt, you've got so many guys who produced. I mean, can't be enough reps to go around. How do you manage all of those guys who've been out there?
Well, I think you can do it easier with personnel sometimes than running backs. You know what I mean? If you look back in our league, Al Borges did a great job at Auburn with Ronnie Brown and Cadillac Williams. Everybody remembers that. But if you look at it, Cadillac basically played fullback a lot in that offense. Tight ends, you can do it more with personnel grouping. So it's easier to get tight ends in the game and play multiple tight ends. But at the same time, you know, there's going to be sometimes the guy's going to play more and less depending on how a game gets dictated.
You mentioned personalities among running backs, tight ends. Who's got the most, I guess, bombastic, in-your-face personality of those guys?
Of running backs and tight ends?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know a running back that doesn't have one. AJ's pretty quiet, you know, he's pretty quiet. And then Jacob, you know, he likes to saunter over to the play caller quite a bit, you know what I mean? and I enjoy that. That's good.
On a weekly basis, discounting window dressing and stuff you just are showing people, how many formations do you want to be able to run a play out of? What's a good number?
One play out of, you're saying?
Yeah, that you would go into thinking, okay, we can run a play out of this look.
So in any drop back scheme, I would like to, if it's a scheme that we want to hang our hat on every week, I would like to have 5 different formations that we could run a concept from. Now, how many do we have of those? Probably, you know, 8 that we could run 5 different ways, and then other things get game plan, or they get kind of hammered into one type of a look. But yes, that's where the change comes. Is you just run the same plays with different looks and different personnel packages, and you grow from there.
Are we seeing an expansion of that? I mean, it felt like it was a lot of tempo for a while, and now it feels like you see people trying to really disguise or at least play with the formations.
I think it's a different thought process, and that's one of the things that we discussed as an offensive staff, because, you know, tempo, you watch tempo teams, they're largely 2x2, 3x1, unattached, and they're moving, right? Their trips are 2x2 unattached sets. Then you watch other teams that are using motions and personnel packages. That does slow it down a little bit in the process. So you kind of have to pick your poison. My philosophy is I like tempo. I do. I think it serves a purpose, but I don't think tempo outweighs teaching a quarterback. And so with that, I like to teach the quarterback, and when you do that and the game is technically a little slower, then we're going to show them different bunch sets, trip sets, what we call gang sets, all different things. You're going to throw the variations and within different personnels.
How much of that is trying to get them just not to be able to line up? I mean, how much of that is just that?
I don't know. You know, it's at least they have to work on it. So when a defense, first thing they look at is, okay, what formations do we have to line up against, and what plays do they run from those formations? So the more you have, the more they have to work, and you don't have X amount of time in a week. You know, you got to spend time working on it. So the more formations you throw out there, the better. Now, I do think if you can use the same personnel groupings and get in all the formations, then that's harder on a defense coordinator coordinator, because he's not sitting there listening to personnel and knowing what formation I'm in. He's sitting there hearing the same personnel grouping and saying, okay, what formation is it going to be? So, you know, there's obviously a lot of that goes into it. It's just to make those guys practice some things, and we're really running the same thing. Now, first thing we do, normal down and distance on Sunday and Monday, we're looking at it saying, okay, what are our best formations for angles and numbers in the run game, and then what can we throw from it, you know what I mean, and build from there. And then you always try to figure out a couple of new wrinkles each week.
Are Hayden and Debo guys who give you flexibility in that regard, and that you can put them, you feel like, in different?
Yeah, Debo can play inside.
Right.
Debo can play obviously outside and all that, and Hayden can play attached. He can play outside, wide receiver. He can do it all. So yes, you can manipulate him. And now all of a sudden, Debo's in the slot and Hayden's outside, or Hayden's in the slot and Debo's outside. And that's all those things guys got to figure out. So there's coverage tells to all those things. So if I put Debo inside and Hayden outside, and the corner comes inside, then I got a pretty good tip to man coverage. You know what I mean? So there's all those coverage tells that take place that you try to help the quarterback with.
Can anyone else move besides Debo and Hayden like that? In that
Brian can do all that. You know, our other tight ends are functional at doing those things for sure. We got to keep developing that and keep developing wide receiver speed. We need more depth at wide receiver right now that we know, you know, what's going to happen on Saturday, if that makes sense.
What's the ideal number you're looking at for a receiver on any given Saturday?
So we'll travel anywhere from 6 to 7, depending on what's going on. Now, who plays, I don't know that yet. The more, the better. But, you know, and it's hard to take Debo and Brian off the field. You know what I mean? Now we'd like to find that third that we can add to the field. Debo and Brian come off, they need a little bit of a break, and we feel like Cougar can help us with that. We feel like Ortre's gotten to that point. We think Shy can keep coming along, and we got a couple of young guys that, you know, we're watching from there. But
So like a 5-6 rotation would be.
if you had 5 or 6 that you felt really good about, then you've got a great number. I mean, a great number. The best year I've ever had throwing the football, we played 3 guys. 3 guys.
Yeah.
You know, we had 2 on the out, Jamison Crowder, Connor Vernon, and a guy named Desmond Scott that we moved from running back, and they didn't come off the field. That's not ideal, but it's the best year I've ever had throwing the football.
How many guys had competing at the slot position, and how much more do you kind of want to get receivers there as
Well,
compared to
you
tight
know,
ends?
Debo can show up in the slot, right? Shy Smith is going to show up in the slot. You know, Dreek is a guy that we feel like can play in the slot. Those are the main guys right now that we feel best about in the slot situation if it's not a tight end.
Do you go into Saturday saying, I'm going to take 4 shots, 5 shots, 3 shots, regardless of what the look is?
Yeah, so I think I would even like more than that, to be honest with you. You know, you're really probably closer to 10. Let's go try to score. You know, when you call a play, so everybody says, well, every play is designed to score. But there's more that this one really, hey, fellas, this is what we're trying to do. We try to do more than that. And there's really security in that. One of the best things we did last year was throw the ball down the sideline, plain simple, because there's safety in that. You know what I mean? It's true one-on-one. I'm protecting a young quarterback. Where's your best matchup? They're going to be man-to-man. And so those are shots. When we call that, that's a shot to try to go score. But I think you can develop different ways to do it. But you see so much in our league. And so I'll tell you another story. Eli Manning was our quarterback in 2003. We ran it probably about 30% of the time. We were throwing it about 70% of the time. You know what every defense coordinator said on first and second down? Stop the run. Stop the run. You know what I mean? So in this league, you see loaded boxes and you see pressure to stop the run and all that. So you see a lot of man coverage on the outside, and it's just the mentality in defensive coordinators' mind. They'd rather, you know, nobody wants to get beat deep, but they don't want to just have people run the football on them. So you're running against bad numbers most of the time you're running. You're just trying to find the best angles that you can get. But it does give you one-on-one shots on the outside.
As a true freshman, how hard is it for your system to maybe pick up, and how fast do you introduce them to your
Depends on the position. So we've had multiple true freshman running backs play, multiple true freshman wide receivers play. I've had quarterbacks play. It's not ideal. And tight ends very difficult. And offensive line is very difficult. It's just so much in the league. But skill position in 26, 27 practices, we can get a guy that's close. I mean, we played, I don't know how many true freshman wide receivers last year. We played 4, something like that, 2 true freshman quarter. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be good, but you can get him ready to play.
In the early going last year with Jake, it seemed like a lot of the passes were either behind the line of scrimmage or kind of deeper shots in his first few games. And as he progressed, you started working more in the middle. Is that a design thing? Is that a Jake thing, or is that a natural thing with him?
It's a protection thing. So the more he got comfortable understanding protection, or the more I got comfortable with him, his understanding of protections, then the more you can build 4 receiver routes, 5 receiver routes, and different things like that. So it was really, you go in those first games, I can't tell you I knew how he was going to play against UMass, but I knew I didn't want him to beat us in the first quarter or the first half. So you try to protect quarterbacks with play calls, and the more comfortable I get with his understanding, then the more he has, right? It's just the way it is.
Kurt, with your offense, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Duke, I mean, a lot of times when you got comfortable, you were taking shots, throwing the ball down the field. Would you categorize that as being aggressive on offense? Is there a better term on how to put it than just throwing the ball up and down?
Well, I don't know if aggressive is the term. I mean, I got trained offensive football by a guy that likes to throw the football. You know what I mean? And so, I like to throw the football too. And I think there's obviously got to be balance. But I mean, I don't know that I just sit there and think throwing the football makes you more aggressive. I guess, so, obviously you got to have a good decision maker and take care of the football. The more the ball is over the middle, the more hands are involved and that type of stuff. So he's got to see. But yeah, I mean, it just, explosive plays are a big part of offense, and it's easier to get explosive passes.
When you have guys that you know have been out there and done it like you have with this team, is it easier to go ahead and say we can go for an explosive play here?
Yeah. I mean, last year we went into the season and Perry played a little bit. Really, nobody else had played a little bit, and I don't think I was as worried about it till we started playing, and I was like, okay, this isn't as far along as I thought it was, you know what I mean? And so then it kind of affected things as it went on, and then as we started kind of catching our groove and guys started finding roles, I think the offense morphed a little bit, you know what I mean? And so yeah, I think year 2 is helpful.
How much does a specific opponent, I'm thinking here in my mind about NC State's defensive line, how much will the reality of what they're able to do affect your plan for a game? Do you plan around that? Do you feel like you have to account for that?
Absolutely. Now, you still have to be yourself and you still have to play the game, but absolutely you have to go into that. First thing we look at when we game plan opponent is there a matchup problem in protection? Just true one-on-one, you know what I mean? And you got to think through all that. And it can't affect your whole game plan, but it's going to affect some decisions for sure.
Those guys are a matchup problem, aren't they?
They're pretty good football players.
Yeah.
They really are. I mean, you watch them play. They play hard. They play physical. They play with leverage. I mean, their motor runs high, and they're strong. You look at their strength levels. They got one guy squatting 700 pounds or something like that. I mean, they're strong guys, but they can run. They can move. And they've done a great job developing them because they're all 6, they're probably a little undersized for whatever their position was coming out of high school, and they've coached them and developed them into being really good players that'll probably make money playing this game. And so it's going to be a challenge. When you watch them outside the defensive line, the thing that jumped out at me the most is they tackle really well. When they hit you, you watch guys and they go backwards or they stop. And so they did a good job tackling on the perimeter and chasing the ball. They're impressive.
When you come out of an August camp, how much do you, think you know about a team, and how much do you kind of say they're going to get on a field and I'm going to learn a whole lot more in the first few weeks?
Yeah, you do learn more and you figure out people's roles, and hopefully we feel better about that because we spent all last year and those guys are back. But yes, you do start learning about your team as you're going on, and It's the one, I mean, you go to high school football and you go to the pro football, and they've got exhibition games. Even high school football, call them scrimmages, but it's an exhibition game. We don't get that. We go against ourselves, and it's just a little bit different because you've been practicing against yourself, and you kind of know what's going to happen defensively before you go out there. You don't know how guys are going to respond against something that you hadn't necessarily worked against, and so it definitely helps you learn about you. But you know, we're playing NC State game 1. You got to get ready to go.
Is being balanced equal number run and pass? Is that something that sounds good, but you can't really focus on once you get into the flow of the game? And
I think really what you got to be able to do is you have to be able to run the football. You have to be able to throw the football. You know, it doesn't mean you call just what you ask. It doesn't mean you call equal number in a game, because games dictate. Sometimes you get ahead and you're running the ball more in the fourth quarter, so your numbers get skewed, or you get behind and you're throwing the ball more, so your numbers get skewed. But you want to have the ability to run in critical situations. You know what I mean? If you want a short yardage, low red, fourth down situations, you got to be able to run the football in critical situations. So if that's the only time you do it, then it's hard. So you got to be able to balance it up.
Corey Helms told us that Coach Wolford has done a good job of keeping a chip on their shoulder from last year's performance, bringing up things that were said last year. Is that something that you agree with? Would you like for them to remember last year and their performance, or would you like to see them kind of forget about it?
I think if it helps them prepare, it's great. Once the game starts, then you've got to be focused on what's taking place, the play call, the front, all the calls up front. I think those things, that emotional motivation is good for preparation, but it disappears when the kickoff starts. And now we've got to be a fine-tuned machine. And so I think it's great. But then when it's time to go, I talk to the offense all the time. We're going to be a well-oiled machine. What we're going to be. We're going to play with energy, not emotion, if we can, because emotion is streaky. Emotion kind of goes with the crowd. And so it's great for preparation, and I love it if it helps them practice better on a Tuesday. But Saturday when we play NC State, we got to handle the multiple fronts and the movements and all that type of stuff. They don't need to be thinking about last year.
You guys did some stuff.
Motivation-wise in the spring, how did y'all bring that out in them?
I think what you do is you just create goals for each situation. So in spring football, we create goals, and we're trying to develop as many players that can get on the football field that we can. You know, one of our goals this year is less negative plays, run game, pass. So you focus on that, and then you get into fall camp. We're simple right now in our mindset. We want to be professional. We want to go out on the field and handle our business in a professional manner, and everything outside as best we can. And we want to be competitive. I want to go compete right now. I want guys competing for positions, just like I talked to Mike Scarnecchia. Go compete right now. Don't settle into what everybody thinks or even what maybe a coach thinks right now. Go compete. And if we do that, then the goals will start obviously developing tighter and tighter as we get ready for it.
Jake said he wasn't proud of the way he hung his head in some tough games last year as a freshman quarterback. In your experience with the position, who really excelled at being level-headed, and how important is that for him to be that as a sophomore?
So I think the first thing is you have to be your personality. One thing he is energetic. You know, he's competitive and passionate. Now, I think you always want to stay in a positive mindset as best you can, but I think you have to be true to who you are. Now, saying that, if you watch Eli Manning play, if you just put a camera on him, you didn't know if he threw a touchdown or an interception. I mean, after every play, he would throw the ball. He'd reset his pads. He throws his shoulder pads up, and he kind of looks sideways, and then he goes on to – that's every play. And so he's just you know, that way. And people critique that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that said that's not going to work, you know, until he won 2 Super Bowls. And so I think the biggest thing about a leader is you better work hard first, you better be productive second, and then you better stay true to your personality third.
You guys did some stuff last year with power reads, selling Jake on inside runs to get AJ on the edge. Is that something you guys can risk with your current quarterback situation?
Do we want to tell people that we can't risk that?
They probably have a pretty good idea.
Yeah, you know, we got to be smart. You know, we got to be smart. I mean, he's not the same guy to be running through the tackles, you know what I mean, in gap schemes, counters or powers and all those things. There'll be situations where Jake could end up running the football, but we're not going to obviously,
You're not
you
gonna
know,
feed
be
him a
Lamar
Cam
Jackson
Newton
back
diet.
there. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Do you feel like you need a wild? Do you feel like you need a Wildcat package? Is that something that everybody just
You know,
carries
that's a great.
this week?
So this will go on. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. What do you think?
My thought is yes.
Okay, it's interesting. So, because we have these discussions all the time, it's not hard to do. We've done Wildcat
Right.
package since 2010 with Brandon Cannett and Anthony Boone, and you put a package out there. So it's an interesting conversation. You know, that's an easy package to get ready to go. The hard debate behind that is when you take a guy like Jake Bentley out from quarterback.
Right.
Those are the debates that you have internally, and that's why we
But
got to
is
make
it-
those decisions.
Is it just something nowadays though that you feel like you have to show people? You have to just to make them think you've got it in your package.
So it's another package that people have to spend time working
Right.
if you do it. You know what I mean? They do have to do that. They're going to say, okay, we got to spend six plays in this period today on Wildcat. So it obviously is something that a defense has to handle. Again, it's not very difficult to install.
Right. Let
And
Debo-
I do
let
think
De-
we
let
have
Debo
some
take a snap
Wildcat
and run the
guys. I
ball.
do think we have, we got multiple, in my opinion, Wildcat guys because they're smart. They played football, and they can run. They can break tackles. You know, I mean, whether it's a running back, whether it's Debo, whether it's Hayden, all those guys can handle it. The question is, first down and goal on the 7-yard line, and you go to Wildcat, and Jake's not in there. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the debate that you always, when things don't work, you always look back and say, why did it not work? You know what I mean? If you took your quarterback
a better
out,
option there?
Correct. And you beat yourself up. And Cut used to say all the time, just because you did this, that didn't make that the right answer. But it's just not, it's just human nature, you know what I mean, to beat yourself up if it does. So, yeah, we'll have a package, how much and when and all that stuff. We'll see as it goes on. If it works a bunch, then we'll use it a bunch.
Do you think Jay can play? Do you think Jay can play this year? What have you seen?
Jay-
Yerrick.
I don't know yet. You know what? He's handled the first 2 days really well. For me to say, is he ready to play? I don't know yet. So I want to get through the first scrimmage, have a really condensed package of plays for him, and just see how he handles that. But he's had two good days to start with.
In an ideal world, would he redshirt? Or would
Yeah,
you like to have him play just to get some experience? for
Yeah, I'm
next year?
hoping, obviously Jake stays healthy and Mike keeps progressing the way he is, and we can develop a quarterback rather than having to play a true freshman quarterback. But I don't think, obviously Coach makes all those decisions, and when and how the season goes all determines that. So right now, what we tell all those guys that come in, you need to have the mindset to play. If you don't have the mindset to play, then you don't challenge yourself well enough to go through the install to learn enough to handle it. And so that's our conversation right now, and we'll see how it develops.
Thanks, Coach.